He sat on the cold concrete floor, hands cuffed behind his back, the faint flicker of a dying bulb casting shadows across his gaunt face. At 28, Marcus Doc K. Bellamy was the most feared man in the state of Georgia. To the press, he was a legend, to the police, a ghost, but to the people, he was a nightmare that knocked in the dead of night. He had escaped prison not once, not twice, but 5 times, each more daring than the last. His crimes? 10 confirmed robberies. 3 confirmed murders. But that number barely scratched the surface. The officers who brought him in whispered of far more: unsolved massacres, missing persons, bodies never found. Now, with execution just hours away, he had one request: to speak. One final interview. A chance to purge his soul, or perhaps manipulate one more audience. Journalist Reggie Marlowe, known for his raw crime columns, was granted exclusive access. The guards gave them 2 hours. "You have 2 hours, nothing more," barked the warden. Reggie nodded, adjusting his recorder, heart thudding in anticipation. The man before him didn't look like a monster. Ragged hair, deep-set eyes, lean frame. More like a man eaten alive by his own choices. But the way he sat, unshaken, alert, betrayed his predator's core. "Start with your name. Not your street name. Your real one." Marcus smiled faintly. "I was born Marcus Elijah Bellamy. But no one calls me that anymore. To them, I'm Doc K." "Why Doc K?" "Old friend gave it to me. A foreigner, used to teach me bits of Spanish. Said I was clever, precise. Like a surgeon with a scalpel. Only difference? My tools were bullets." Reggie swallowed hard. "Tell me about your childhood." A deep breath. A far-off look. "I grew up in Bainbridge. Small town. Dusty roads. My father was a welder. Good man. Honest. But poverty doesn't care how good you are. When I was 10, he broke his back. Couldn't work. We starved." He chuckled bitterly. "You ever been so hungry your stomach screams like a dying goat?" Reggie didn't answer. "I was a bright kid. Got into a vocational school in Columbus. Loved mechanics. But in my 3rd year, I dropped out. Not because I wanted to, but because life forced my hand. No fees. No food. Just dreams that meant nothing." "Was that when crime started calling?" Marcus nodded slowly. "First, it was small jobs, fixing radios, bicycles. Then one day, I met Jimmy. Smooth talker. Drove a shiny Dodge Charger. He handed me a pistol and said, 'You want real money? Come with me.' I did. First job, I held the bag. We made off with $500. That was more money than I had ever seen. But that wasn't enough. No," his voice darkened. "Money's like a drug. The first taste is never the last. Jimmy introduced me to his circle: robbers, ex-Marines, dirty cops. I became their golden boy. I never missed a shot. I never panicked. I had a gift." He paused, eyes narrowing. "But a gift like mine, it eats your soul." Reggie leaned in. "Tell me about the first time you killed." The silence that followed was heavy. "We hit a textile warehouse," Marcus said eventually. "The night guard surprised us. Young man, barely 20. He raised the alarm. I didn't think. I pulled the trigger. Right between his eyes. Did you feel anything?" "Yes." Marcus looked Reggie in the eye. "I felt alive. That's what scared me." A shiver crawled down Reggie's spine. "After that, it got easier. We hit banks, penthouses, even a payroll convoy once. I wore a mask, but the streets whispered my name. Doc K strikes again. Every escape, every job, my legend grew. You mentioned dirty cops. Marcus snorted. Without them, I'd never have lasted this long. Captain Doyle used to tip us off before raids. Told us which patrols to avoid. And for every heist, he got a cut. I wasn't just robbing the people. I was protected by those meant to serve them. Reggie's mind raced. The implications were damning. But all legends fall, Marcus said, voice colder now. And mine began to crack the night of the Rose Lake heist. What happened? He looked away. We were supposed to hit the vault at 3 a.m. Clean operation. But someone tipped them off. We walked into a trap. Half my crew gunned down. I took 2 bullets but escaped through a sewer grate. I bled for hours. Hid in an old woman's toolshed. She fed me, even though she recognized me. Did you kill her? Marcus's jaw clenched. No. I left at dawn. I owed her that. Reggie tapped his recorder. You said someone tipped them off. Who? Marcus leaned forward, voice dropping to a whisper. That's why I asked for this interview, Reggie. There's something no one knows. Something I couldn't say in court. Reggie's eyes widened. What is it? There's a man, he's still out there. Pulling strings. I was just a piece. He orchestrated everything. Used us. Then when we became a liability, he started cleaning house. Who is he? Marcus's lips curled into a bitter smile. His name is... The cell door slammed open. Time's up, barked a guard. No. Reggie cried, standing up. He was about to give me out. Now. Marcus didn't flinch. He simply stared at Reggie. Find the one-eyed lion, he said cryptically. He knows where the bodies are buried. As Reggie was escorted out, heart pounding, he looked back one last time. Marcus had already turned away. The next time he'd see him would be in the news, tied to a post, blindfolded, moments before the firing squad. But Reggie now had a mission, and a mystery. Who was the one-eyed lion? And what secrets had Marcus taken to his grave? The sun had barely risen over Atlanta's smoggy skyline when Reggie Marlowe found himself staring at the single cryptic phrase he'd scribbled on the inside of his notepad, find the one-eyed lion. Marcus Bellamy was executed at 5:47 a.m. sharp. A volley of 5 bullets ended the life of the state's most feared criminal. The news cycle would call it closure. But Reggie knew better. Find the one-eyed lion. The words echoed in his mind like a bad song. Bellamy hadn't begged for forgiveness. He hadn't asked to see a preacher. He spent his final hour telling Reggie a name, a warning, right before death took him. Why? Why give him that breadcrumb? The journalist had interviewed dozens of convicts, murderers, gangsters. None of them talked about someone worse. But Bellamy did. And now Reggie had a choice, walk away or dig deeper. He didn't even hesitate. Reggie's first stop was the Georgia Department of Corrections archive room, a dim, dusty place where inmates' files were kept like forgotten obituaries. He requested Bellamy's sealed case files, flashing his journalist credentials and leveraging the weight of the Republic Tribune, his employer. Reluctantly, the clerk brought out 2 boxes. Hours passed as Reggie flipped through mugshots, court documents, forensic reports. Then he found it, buried in a footnote from Bellamy's first arrest in Savannah. Subject mentioned working security for a man known as Leo, possibly short for Leonard. Street name, Lion. Known to wear eye patch due to right eye injury sustained during an armed robbery in 1992. Reggie sat up straight. One-eyed lion. Leo. The lion. It wasn't a metaphor, it was a man. A real person with a history. And according to the footnote, Leo had never been convicted. Not once. His name barely appeared after 1999. Reggie dug further. Pulled property records. Searched newspaper databases. Finally, something clicked, a small real estate firm in Atlanta's East Point neighborhood owned by a Leonard Knox. Listed as president, Leonard L. Knox, born 1961, lost an eye in 1992 robbery. No criminal record. But here's the twist, Knox owned 5 different LLCs, all tied to warehouses and cash-based businesses, 2 pawn shops, a strip club, and a used tire yard. Fronts. Bellamy had said the man was still out there. Reggie believed him. The air was thick with humidity when Reggie pulled up to Lion's Den Auto and Tire, the address tied to one of Knox's shell companies. The lot was quiet, almost too quiet for a Saturday afternoon. A lone mechanic smoked beside a jacked-up Chevy Malibu. Reggie approached. "Hey man, I'm looking for Mr. Knox." "Leonard Knox." The mechanic narrowed his eyes. "Who wants to know?" Reggie played it cool. "Just a friend from back in the day. Used to run security with Bellamy." That name caused a ripple. The man flicked his cigarette, stepping closer. "You don't just say that name around here," he muttered. "You said too much already." Reggie knew when not to push. He handed over a burner number. "If he wants to talk, tell him I'm writing Marcus Bellamy's last story. And I think he'd want to read it before it prints." He walked away, praying that curiosity trumped caution. The call came at midnight. A gravelly voice on the other end, "Be at Louis' Diner. Booth 7, 2 a.m. Come alone." Click. Reggie's pulse raced. He dressed in black, packed a small voice recorder in his shirt pocket, and slipped a small blade into his boot, just in case. Louis' Diner was an all-night haunt off Highway 166. The kind of place truckers and insomniacs called home. Booth 7 was in the back, beneath a flickering, "Open 24 hours" sign. A man sat there, face half-shadowed. Black suit. Clean shave. Gray hair. But unmistakable, an eye patch over his right eye. "You Reggie?" "Yes, sir." "Sit." Reggie obeyed. "You talked to Marcus?" "I did. 2 hours before his execution." The man nodded. "I told him not to talk. But Marcus always had that bleeding heart buried somewhere under all that rage." "So it's true," Reggie pressed. "You ran the operations?" Knox didn't answer directly. Instead, he stirred his coffee. "You ever seen a man gut another man for $10? He asked softly. Reggie tensed. "No. I have. I taught half those boys how to hold a gun. How to disappear. But Marcus, he went rogue. He started doing jobs without checking in. That's when it got messy." "So you tipped off the cops at Rose Lake?" Reggie asked, recorder still running silently. Knox chuckled. "I didn't tip anyone. But I didn't save him either." "Why are you telling me this now?" Knox leaned in, voice low. "Because there's something coming. And when it breaks, you'll wish you had stayed away." Reggie's brow furrowed. "What are you talking about?" "There's a ledger. Marcus hid it before his last job. It has names. Mine. Judges. Cops. Bankers. Everyone who fed off that machine." Reggie's heart skipped. "Where?" "No one knows. But Marcus sent someone to get it before he was caught. A kid. Goes by Red. He vanished." Knox looked Reggie dead in the eyes. "Find Red, and you'll find the truth. But know this, when you do, they'll come for you too." He stood and walked out without another word. The next day, Reggie was back at his apartment, walls now plastered with timelines, maps, photos of Bellamy, Knox, and court transcripts. Red. He ran the name through arrest records and found something strange: a juvenile caught trespassing in 2022 inside the old Roselake warehouse, real name, Darren Wallace, nickname, Lil Red. No parents listed. Foster care kid. Reggie circled the address. Last known group home, Liberty Pines Youth Shelter, now closed. He got in his car and drove. Liberty Pines was a crumbling building off a forgotten road near South Fulton. Weeds grew through the parking lot. The main entrance was padlocked, windows broken. A place left to rot. But Reggie spotted movement, someone darting past a window inside. He crept to the side, found a broken panel, and slipped in. "Hello?" he called softly. "I'm not a cop. I'm looking for Red. Darren Wallace. It's about Marcus Bellamy." Silence. Then a whisper, "You said Marcus?" Reggie turned. A kid no older than 17 stepped from the shadows, hoodie pulled low, eyes wild. "I knew him," the boy said. "He saved my life once." "I need the ledger," Reggie said quickly. "You have it?" The boy hesitated, then slowly nodded. "But I didn't read it. I was told to wait. He said, when he dies, someone would come." Reggie stepped closer. "Where is it?" The boy reached into his backpack, and froze. From outside, the sound of tires screeching. A black SUV. Then the crunch of boots on gravel. Reggie's eyes widened. "They found us." The boy whispered, "We have to run." Gunfire shattered the window. The air reeked of mildew and smoke as Reggie and Darren, Red Wallace, ran through the crumbling hallways of Liberty Pines Youth Shelter. Gunshots echoed behind them. Plaster rained from the ceiling as bullets ripped through old drywall. "This way!" Red shouted, leading Reggie through a stairwell into the basement. Reggie's heart hammered against his ribs. Every instinct screamed at him to run, hide, survive, but he couldn't leave without the ledger. It wasn't just a notebook anymore. It was proof. It was the skeleton key to a hidden empire of corruption, crime, and the men who pulled strings in silence. They reached the boiler room, damp and rusted, and Red dropped to his knees beside a large pipe. He pulled at a loose vent cover and reached into the darkness. His hand emerged gripping a worn, leather-bound book wrapped in black tape. "This is it," he said, breathless. "Marcus made me swear to keep it hidden." Reggie grabbed it, flipping through the pages. Names. Dates. Codes. Bank transfers. Even photos, some blurred, some crystal clear. There were judges. Officers. Politicians. Knox's name appeared repeatedly, usually beside transaction logs. But others were more shocking, people who had attended charity galas and spoken at schools. "What happens now?" Red asked, eyes darting back toward the hallway. Before Reggie could answer, the door above burst open. Flashlights danced down the stairwell. "Basement. Move," a voice yelled. Reggie clutched the ledger to his chest. "We split up. Go out the back. There's a bus station on Fletcher Street. Head to Charleston. I'll meet you in 2 days." Red hesitated, torn. "I'll be fine," Reggie insisted. "They're after me, not you. Go." Red nodded once, then vanished through a side hatch. Reggie ducked behind the boiler as footsteps entered the room. "Check behind the tanks." He counted 3 men, 1 near the entrance, 2 sweeping the room. Reggie tossed an old wrench across the room. It clanged loud against the wall. "There." As they turned, he bolted for the door, shoulder-slamming one man and sprinting into the corridor. He heard shouts behind him, then a shot fired. Pain seared through his left arm, but he didn't stop. He burst through a side exit and into the woods beyond the shelter. Darkness swallowed him, but adrenaline fueled every step. 48 hours later, Charleston, South Carolina. The bus station was buzzing with early commuters when Reggie found Red seated at the end of a bench, hoodie up. He slid next to him, arm still bandaged, and placed a copy of the Republic Tribune on his lap. The front page headline read, "The Ledger of Blood, Journalistic Bombshell Exposes Criminal Web Tied to Atlanta's Elite." "I did it," Reggie said. "The whole thing's out. The FBI has the ledger. The Tribune published everything." Red stared in awe, barely believing it. "They know about Knox?" he asked. "Knox, the judges, the DA, the officers, all of them. A few already fled. Others were arrested this morning. It's only a matter of time." Red nodded slowly. "So what happens to us?" "You," Reggie said, "are going to California. I pulled some strings. You've got a new identity, a place in a youth program out there. It's not perfect, but it's safe." Red's eyes welled up. "Marcus was right about you." Reggie smiled faintly. "He was right about you too." 3 months later, U.S. Federal Courthouse, Atlanta. The courtroom was packed with press, victims' families, and armed security. Leonard Knox stood shackled, dressed in a prison jumpsuit, his eye patch still in place. His once proud posture was gone. His shoulders slumped under the weight of everything he built, and everything he lost. The trial had taken weeks. The evidence from Marcus Bellamy's ledger was ironclad. Wire transfers, offshore accounts, surveillance footage, and whistleblower testimony painted a picture of a criminal empire that had infiltrated the very system meant to stop it. Knox never testified. He never denied it. He just listened. On the final day of the sentencing hearing, the judge turned to him. "Mr. Knox, do you have any final words before sentencing?" He stood slowly. For a moment, it seemed he wouldn't speak. But then. "I started out as a lookout on the streets of New Orleans. 17 years old, watching corners, calling out cops. Thought I'd never make it past 25. But I did. I learned the game. Played it better than most. And when I realized how easily people could be bought, how easily justice could be rented, I stopped being afraid of anyone." He paused, looking down at his shackled hands. "But somewhere along the way, I lost everything that made me human. I taught boys to kill. I turned desperate kids into monsters. Marcus Bellamy was one of them. I made him into what he became. And when he got too wild, too angry, I threw him to the wolves." Knox raised his head, voice softer. "When I read the article, saw what Red and that journalist did, I felt something I hadn't felt in 30 years. Shame. Real shame. I don't expect forgiveness. I know what's coming. But I want the record to show, I regret every damn minute of the life I chose." The courtroom fell silent. The judge nodded grimly. "Leonard Knox, for the charges of racketeering, conspiracy to commit murder, obstruction of justice, and dozens more, this court sentences you to death by lethal injection at a date to be determined." Gasps echoed. Knox closed his eye, then gave the faintest nod, as if he welcomed it. 9 months later, federal death row, Terre Haute, Indiana. The chamber was sterile and quiet. Leonard Knox lay strapped to a gurney. A priest stood nearby. The warden approached with a clipboard. "Mr. Knox, any final words?" Knox looked up at the ceiling. "If Marcus can hear me. I'm sorry, brother. You were my sword and my shield. And I broke you." He paused, voice breaking. "To every kid I ever used, every family I ever destroyed. May God have more mercy than I deserve." He exhaled slowly. The warden nodded. The injection was administered. At 6:03 a.m., Leonard Knox, the Lion of Atlanta, was pronounced dead.